Chris, I would like to go back to you because you had something to say when we were talking about FSSA and the future and what people can do right now.
Well, it's just that Dan brought up, you know, putting more money into the system, and you know, I think it's important to recognize that there just is no more money. I mean, state revenues are down $300 million from the low projections that we already had. I mean, if we don't work harder to leverage what we already have and the technology and the employees that we already have, I mean, it'd be great in a perfect world if we just had unlimited funds. We just don't.
Okay, well, Dan, what should we be doing to help people in poverty and those who are suffering from homelessness right now?
Well, first thing, people in poverty and people suffering from homelessness, that's a broad category. You know, we kind of see them more as individual variants within that category. What needs to be done almost immediately, townships are the only local government, or they're the only government agency that deals with emergency services. We have 3 days to get back with people, and our clientele has changed. I've been doing it 23 years. 10 years ago, $450 would stabilize someone in housing for a month. 5 years ago, $750, we could stabilize them for a month. Now what we're seeing in regular people walking our door, they need $1,000 just right off to keep them stable for a month. Somehow local government's supposed to come up with that money, and the state's absolving themselves saying, oh, but we're out of money. Well, we're out of money too. Something has to give. And we can do some of it locally, but I don't know that we can put that on local taxes to resolve.
Actually, Stan has a question right now concerning this. Stan, why don't you go ahead?
I have a question, a quick question for Dan Combs, and that is, you know, with the changes made from House Bill 1001 a couple of years ago, a lot of local officials were stripped of their jobs and in a government downsizing. Has that made it more difficult over the last couple of years to deal with issues like poverty and homelessness, and since there are less officials to do the jobs and to keep people in mind?
I will say that last year, during the meltdown of FSSA, holding clients, doing as well as we could for them, while at the same time holding off the politicians from getting rid of townships was a dual challenge. We got through it in Bloomington, I think, without anybody missing meals. That's not the way it was around the state. So, yeah, it's hurting tremendously that we're losing people, but we're not picking up people. We're not moving the responsibilities. We're just losing people.
Jennifer, would you like to respond to that as well? Is this what you're seeing as well in your department?
Well, most, if not all, of our funds for the major programs that we administer, which would be the public housing program or the affordable housing program, where we actually own and manage and provide a unit, and our rent assistance program. And now a new program that we've just started administering in October would directly affect homeless veterans. And so we have executed a contract with the Department of Housing and Urban Development to work directly with Veterans Affairs, and through referral we would provide a housing voucher for a homeless veteran. So those 35 vouchers are being put into place right now. Again, our Section 8 Housing Assistance Payments Program or voucher program is funded federally, and so what happens at the federal level, what is appropriated by Congress, directly affects how many families we can help. Now, we may have a contract to help 1,284 families every year, but do we have the funding to do that is the second question. And certainly with the new administration at the federal level, that is changing, and we are receiving additional, certainly more funds than we've received in the last 8 years, and we will be able to help more families.
Well, that brings me to my next point. In the story that we had at the beginning of the show, there was quite shocking, I think, to many people, is that the vast number of people that are suffering from homelessness are families, or there's a higher percentage. Jennifer, can you talk about this? And you spoke a little bit about it just here, about how we're trying to help these families, but first of all, why are we seeing more families that are dealing with homelessness? And first of all,
homelessness is directly related to employment, and that's why we're seeing more. And I think until that situation stabilizes, We opened our waiting list for 2 days in August for our rent assistance program, and we took over close to 500 applications. And folks were sitting outside of our office waiting for us to open our door at midnight. So they waited a good long time.
And if I might, the employment situation is number one. Bloomington has this odd economy where we have a really successful high-end service economy, and then we have a very not successful low-end service economy, clerical, retail type service. And housing cost is the other part of the equation. No matter what we do, if we give everybody a job, housing costs in Bloomington go up year after year after year after year. And one of the stimulus package coming out of the federal government doesn't include anything for more vouchers, except for the veterans program, which may or may not, I'm not aware of where it came from. But what it does encourage is building affordable housing. Affordable housing is for people who can afford it. We did a point of origin study the last 18 months where our clients come from, and they come from affordable housing. The stereotype is they come from Bloomington Housing Authority projects. That's just not the case. What they come from are these private complexes that get tax breaks to set the rent at the maximum level that they can. And that's a real problem. We have to figure out some way to bring market housing down in Bloomington, as well as we need more vouchers, because the jobs aren't going to solve it for us, or the current jobs we have. And we're always going to have those jobs. Because
you have the dichotomy, you have the college students that are renting houses by room, as opposed to a family that needs to rent a house itself.
That is very serious for large families.
Exactly.
If you can take a 4-bedroom house and rent each bedroom for $500 a month, that is way beyond the fair market rents that are provided by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So the limit, the amount that we can assist a family does not touch that.
Mr. Morales made a really good point in that clip, that people, the stereotype is that the homeless is a substance abuser or has behavioral health issues. Our estimate is that's about 5%, maybe on a given night, of the homeless population. The real homeless population is families that are doubled up, people who are couch surfing from friends, relatives. And that population needs served very quickly and very badly, or they may end up on the street. And you know, we use that term poverty and homelessness, and they're very specific categories within there.
Marcus, I want to go to you and talk about on the state level. Is this what we're seeing on the state level as well in terms of the trends?
Oh, definitely. Like I said before, our volume has increased by 24%, and a lot of that is families. I mean, our Hoosier Health-Wise program, other programs that we have for children, and people that are receiving food stamps for their kids, for their families, has greatly increased.
Okay, let's go to Stan once again. He has a question from the radio booth. Stan?
Thanks, Ann. I have a question for Jennifer. I wanted to know, we haven't talked much about the mayor's proposal in this year's State of the City address to create more affordable housing in Bloomington. I want to know what you think would be the effect of that and how many people could be served. And also, you talked earlier about needing funding. How could the city find funding for that, and how much would be necessary to make sure that this is an effective proposal?
Your local public housing authority is basically funded through contracts with the Department of Housing and Urban Development most of the time. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about generally low-income housing tax credit properties that are not normally owned by public housing authorities. And the way in which rent for a client is computed at the public housing authority is very different than the way the rent is charged in a low-income housing tax credit project. And you're referring to that directly when they say, well, they're going to be evicted from that affordable housing property, because the way in which that rent is determined is significantly greater than 30% of the gross adjusted monthly income of a client, which is our formula. And so many of our vouchers are used in affordable housing projects.
And I think it's important you keep the two terms
The two
separate.
are very separate.
Low-income housing is housing for people with low incomes. Affordable housing is a legal term based on median income.
Right.
And it's very much different. Affordable housing in Bloomington right now, the apartments go for $550 to $800 a month, depending on their size, which is much different than 1/3 of your income if you're on Social Security, which would be $200 a month. The mayor's proposal, and we're following it very closely, and I've had a couple of discussions with him about it, I don't think it's just going to be for affordable housing. I think we're going to include some kind of support mechanism in there for when people who by definition need housing assistance get into trouble, that they don't immediately get evicted. There'll be some mechanism created to stabilize them before they hit the street.
Right.
We only have a minute left, and I'd like to end with Marcus, because I want to get some sort of timeline quickly, if we can, about when the new system and when will be put in place for people who need to have that information.
Well, mid-December, we're going to be announcing the details of the hybrid system, the results of all the information we've gathered. And in January, we're going to be announcing where the first rollout region is going to be. And so we're going to roll out in that region. We're not going to roll out to another region until the system is working to the standards that we've set.
Okay.
So, you know, communities will be updated as we see the system progressing and performing.
Okay, everybody will be highly anticipating what's going to be happening with this and watching very closely. Thank you so much. And thanks so much to our viewers, listeners, and panelists for joining us tonight and all year, of course. We appreciate you making our first season of In Focus a very successful one. Stan, thanks for your help as well.
Thank you, Ann. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Post your questions or comments at infocus@indiana.edu or see portions of this show by visiting our website, indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. We'll see you in 2010 for our second season of In Focus, where we will be discussing the state of the economy. Have a great night and happy holidays from all of us at WTIU and WFIU.
Production support for In Focus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922, with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. And by viewers like you. Thank you.